So I decided to go to Juilliard. I wanted to move to New York, as most young jazz musicians, jazz enthusiasts, they have a dream of going to the Mecca. I used to make pilgrimages, as I call them, um, every year from freshman year at university. I would make a pilgrimage. So my freshman year spring break, I went to New York. I met Ambrose was a junior at Manhattan School of Music at the time. Ambrose and Jean Caz were juniors at Manhattan School of Music at that time. I met them. I met Ingrid Jensen. Um, you would go out and meet people and play a little bit, talk, just to get to know them. And then that summer after my freshman year, I lived in New York for the summer at my uncle's house. Same thing the following summer. So every year, so then finally I was like, okay, I'm getting ready to finish Florida State. I'll try to move to New York. I met Carl Allen at Florida State. He was a guest artist my junior year. He was a guest artist and with the big band soloist, and he's like, well, if you're thinking about grad school, you should think about Juilliard. Juilliard is it's good school, so you should come on up there. I teach combos there. So I was like, all right, cool. So we kept in touch, and I showed up to the audition. He's like, oh, Florida State, yeah.
He's like a basketball coach recruiter.
And I had met Victor Goins at a Jazz at Lincoln Center concert. Living in Tallahassee as a college student, it was good because you were so isolated. You weren't distracted because there wasn't really too much going on there. Well, we had a lot of gigs going on because we didn't have a music business class, but our teachers, I remember Scotty Barnhart told us, he said, look, if you want a gig, this is what you do. You go find the nicest restaurant in town, put on a suit, go up in there, tell them you want to play. You'll play for dinner and whatever they'll pay you. All right. We did it by the end. By the time I was a senior, we had a gig every night. Yeah, as small groups, little trios, quartets, we had gigs every night. Coffee shop, hookah bar, and then we called this one spot a jazz club, but it was a jazz club just for one night, the night that it had jazz. So I got to Juilliard, and it was crazy in the sense that there's so much talent in 5 floors of a building. It's a tiny building. It's 800 students, and from the dancers, the actors, the musicians. It's just, people who have been in serious. At the time, I had been in serious study of my instrument and the music for 4 years, and I'm surrounded by people who were deeply immersed in their crafts from birth. Some of them. Some of the people in the dorm, you see a picture of them sitting at the piano at age 1, like, so it was mind blowing. So it really got me deeper into, okay, if I want to be able to be on the scene and I want to be able to compete and deal, I need to get with it. And it was great to be around so many great teachers, and then of course being in New York and going out, and I got to meet. I met Monty Alexander, started playing with Monty. In New York, Ralph McDonald, I started hanging out with him a lot. He became my mentor. I go to his house every weekend that he was off or I was off, and we started doing records together. He was touring with Jimmy Buffett up until he passed away, and so anytime they were playing, they would play Madison Square Garden every September, October, and JB would throw this huge party. One time he rented out Dizzy's. Yeah, one time he rented out Dizzy's, and he had Wyclif's band playing. So Wyclif's band, so I would sit in with them, and so it was just a great being in New York all the time. It's just, it's New York City. It's everything at the same. It's an overload of, so it's the ultimate candy store for musicians. It's like everything you need, and it's all of these great music. You go to certain clubs, you go to Dizzy's, and Frank West used to be sitting there. You see Tony Bennett hanging out. It's like you see Harry Belafonte sitting there. It's all, So yeah, New York was a trip. When I think of mentors, I think of an extremely important tradition, not only in jazz but in most art forms. And it has changed. The style of it has changed over the years, but the essence has remained the same. The whole master apprentice concept. And for me, I am extremely lucky to have had many mentors. Some that come to mind immediately, great pianist Marcus Roberts, who the J Master. I met him when I was a sophomore at Florida State University. He was the House-Wright music scholar. He's an alumnus of Florida State, and they brought him back for a year-long residency. And I had learned at the time. I had one of his albums, and then quite a few of the albums that he played on were Winton. And I had his record Deep in the Shed, and I had learned one of the songs on the album. So when I met him, I said, "Mr. Roberts, could you show me?" I learned this E. Danquist story, but I don't know if I'm playing it right. So I played it for him, but he's like, "Yeah, that's it. Let's play it." So then he sat down at the piano. I was like, "What?" So then he started playing. I was like, "Okay, this is happening." And from that, we had a little combo at school, and we got Marcus to basically preside over us as we learned his music. We learned all the music from the album Deep in the Shed. And so he became our coach. I became his valet. We basically took turns driving him around. I'd take him to the grocery. I would take him to the barber shop. We'd take him to the airport when he would go on tour. And spend hours at his house just playing music, playing his music, practicing. He would be like, his concept of legato is very important. And so I would just play scales, and he'd be like, "You need to get that legato together." And he was the one that told me, he said, "You need to make sure that you always put you in your music. You have to make sure you play where you're from, you play who you are. You play your lineage, not just you, but the people who came before you. Not only your bloodline and your country, but also the bloodline of your instrument and the bloodline of your music, so that people, like when you play that people hear Louis Armstrong, that people hear Roy Eldridge, that people hear Dizzy Gillespie, that people hear that lineage, that you come out of that." That was one of the heaviest things he said so many heavies. So I'm deeply indebted. I'm grateful. I'll be forever for his guidance, and we still talk. We spend hours on the phone, and he's an extremely funny individual as well. So that was Marcus, and then I moved to New York, and Ralph McDonald took me under his wing, and that was, he's a first generation Trinidadian American from Harlem, and me being from Trinidad, we had a lot of similar upbringings, and so his guidance. He did so much in terms of just playing on my albums and telling me different things to do, different ideas about music, concepts of groove and maintaining. The groove is the heartbeat of the music, and that means without the groove, the music can be lifeless. And so, just when I was hungry, he fed me. He's like, "You look hungry. Let's go eat." And he was really a special mentor. Also at Florida State, Leon Anderson, Rodney Jordan, who were the bass professor, drum professor, Scotty Barnhart, who's now the conductor of the Count Basie Orchestra. At Michigan State, Rodney Whitaker and Randy Gillespie, who were great musicians and great educators. They've been guiding me. We eat a lot together, and you learn a lot by sitting down and eating with somebody, because they're going to tell stories, and they're going to show you how to relate to different types of people. There's all kinds of things you learn just sitting down and having a meal with someone, and then playing music with them. Monty Alexander has been a great guide as well over the years. Just a phone call with him, I hang up from a phone call with him when I go, and I'll write 4 arrangements and practice, because he gets you going. Marcus Miller now, who I've been lucky enough to start playing with and recording with, he just in a couple of months is all these different ideas, new ways of thinking. And I think that's the essence of being a good mentor, is that with a few words and a few actions, you inspire someone to go on and do many different things. And I'm grateful for all, there's so many others. Bugsy Sharp, who's a great arranger in Trinidad, Tony Woodruff, Francis Powell. There've been, so many different walks of life. My parents have been great mentors just to listen to me complain about X and Y and Z and then tell me to stop complaining. And so, you know, I'm grateful, totally indebted to the concept of mentorship. Etienne Charles.